0314 to speak with a live agent. Again, that number is 325-223-0314, or you can visit his website, www.chunkygnomes.com. Chunky Gnomes Insurance, get protected today. It's important, just like week 9 of the high school football season. I'm Ryan Reynolds. Sitting next to me is the great Jaydon Hart from KSAN-TV. The highly anticipated week 9 of the high school football season is in the books. Week 5 for the Central Bobcats. We had 15 total matchups with our Concho Valley teams. 10 were actually here in the area. And after this week's games, I just feel like we took that next step and found out more in terms of district races, seedings, and how things will most likely look when the regular season ends in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, this was you pretty much hit the nail on the head. This was a big week for teams in our 2A district, 14 2A Division 2, and 8 1A Division 1 with that Sterling City Westbrook game. All things we're going to hit on, and also, for the Bobcats, for Lakeview. I mean, it's getting to the point for our 4A and down teams where the district races are coming down to games like last night and potentially next week, and obviously the week after if things tend to shake out. But a lot of stuff kind of seemed like it got solidified last night.
Absolutely. Sterling City had a big game against number 1 Westbrook. We'll touch on that later. Some district champions also crowned. We'll touch on that a little more as well. But let's go ahead and focus on that week 5 matchup for the Central Bobcats. They beat Friendship 35-7 in District 2-6A. The Bobcats improved to 2-0 in district, the only undefeated team now in the Little Southwest Conference. So that's exciting. Friendship falls to 1-1. Central, they led 14-7 at the half after stopping the Tigers on the goal line. They then went ahead and scored 21 unanswered in the final 24 minutes. Just a great game for Central's defense, really. What do you think a win like this does for Central? And do you think there's an argument for the Bobcats that they're the best team in the district through 2 games?
Well, yeah, I mean, through 2 games, if you're the only unbeaten team still left in the district, I feel like that's a pretty sound argument to make. I right now, the Bobcats, just based on how scores have gone, if you want to do the whole trace back, this score to this score to this score, Central would be, by default, I think, the best team in the district. Do I think they're necessarily the best team in the district? We'll wait and see. I mean, because that November 20th game against Permian, I know Abilene shocked. Like, Abilene, we knew Abilene was a good football team. Coach Davis said that after the game and at the press conference this week, or his presser, and he talked about it throughout the week. He was really trying to make the point that Abilene is good, and I'm sure it helped that Coach Fullen, he's been battling colon cancer. He was back on the sidelines for Abilene High last night. It was at Shotwell Stadium, so there are factors that play into it that are just 2 teams facing off. But yeah, I was a little shocked that Abilene High came away with a win, and I think I had the score flipped. On inside the game, I put Permian beat them 27-25, and afterwards I had to double take that they lost. Not that I didn't think necessarily that Abilene could win, but that was that really shook everything up. But kind of back to the point is the teams in that district that I still think that you can't overlook Midland Lee. I know they lost the Permian, but Permian always that game is always a close one. They always play Lee well, Permian does. So and Central's going to have those 2 to end the season. So that will be the test for them. And fortunately for them, they have the next 2 weeks where it's kind of an easy schedule. Just don't do anything, that's going to shoot yourself in the foot.
Don't overlook the next 2 opponents, really. But Central, they host 0-2 Odessa High next Friday for homecoming. And really, through 2 weeks in this district, it just seems like all the dominoes are falling in Central's favor.
Yeah.
You mentioned Midland Lee and Odessa. Odessa Permian, they beat Midland Lee in week 1. And then last night, Abilene beating Odessa Permian. And it just seems like the sea is just kind of splitting for Central to take that district. It's going to be interesting to see down the stretch when Permian comes to San Angelo Stadium, and then when Central travels to Lee, just kind of the outcomes of those two games. Good offensive performance again for Central. All around, Malachi Brown, 22 of 32, 259 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He also threw an interception, but he also had 9 carries for a team-high 85 rushing yards, 1 more rushing touchdown. Jalen Leifeste at wide receiver probably had the best game of his season so far. 12 receptions, which was a game-high, 125 yards, another touchdown. And then Seth Levesque just continuing to tear it up. 5 catches, 99 yards, and a touchdown.
That guy is so good. And to do what he's doing with an injury, man. Yeah, it's just it's impressive. He's got a brace on right now, guys. Like, that kid is
still flying.
and he's still doing what he needs to do. And yeah, to see Jalen have his best game, because coming into the year, you kind of expected him to be the guy that took the lead in that receiving core, or the corps for them. And it's not that he struggled. I just don't think he's necessarily gotten a ton of targets. I mean, last week he got had a good game, and then this week again. So that's the Central receivers and Malachi Brown have figured out their rhythm, and that's something that will probably only get better with these next 2 games, and again will be probably crucial to see how that timing, how everything like that carries over into those final 2, because that's going to be your district title number 1, number 2, number 3 playoff. I feel like
it's just insane how fast that switch flipped with Malachi Brown and these receivers from the first 3 games. Yes, they were tough opponents, but now they're really just tearing it up here at the start of district. Samuel Navarrete was also huge for Central in his second varsity game. 12 carries, 58 yards, another 2 touchdowns for the small fellow.
He's tearing it up.
He packs a punch with the small frame. He really does.
That was a good call up by the Central coaches, bringing him up for JV. He's been the guy. I mean, I know he didn't lead the team in rushing, but he got those first 2 touchdowns, and he hits the hole with a. Just looking at the highlights last night and watching the game against Abilene, I mean, he hits the hole, as the cliche goes, with a purpose.
Yeah, there we go.
Love getting the cliches in. He does, though. I mean, you say he's got that speed, and he doesn't wait for it necessarily to open up. He's just going right through there.
It's like an elusive power.
And it helps to have him. Ashton's kind of more centered towards the defensive side now. He's still in there. He can still get some carries, and that's a back that you can use in situations where you're needing to get that bigger frame in, and Darius Floyd as well. And then now you have 2 change of pace backs with him and with Bell and Isaiah Dale. Excuse me, I say Bell all the time. Isaiah Dale. So yeah, that's a for the Central offense looks like it's finding its way, and the offensive line has kind of found its way as well in the past 2 weeks. I mean, it's hard to make an argument against Central just based on how they've played to start district. They had those 3 road games. All of them were good teams. We've said that before. And, I think this is like the 18th game that they've won since as a member of the Little Southwest Conference playing West Texas teams. Their last loss was in 2015 against Abilene to open district. Since then, they've won 18 straight games. So it's good that the Bobcats are back west and they're not going to the Metroplex. I think everyone will agree with that. Yeah, I think everyone's going to agree with that. But I mean, this is where they had their success in that 5 straight district title, and maybe they can make it 6 when they've been a member of this Little Southwest Conference.
I don't know. On Wednesday's show, we kind of talked about Central and their road woes of late. No road woes for Central in this one. 35-7, the final score. The Bobcats now 2-3 overall, 2-0 in district. Like I said, they will host 0-2 Odessa High next Friday. The main thing I think I'm going to talk to Coach Davis about on Monday when we have our press conference with him is what kind of changed at the half. Because you look at the first half score, the halftime score, 14-7. 35-7. They explode in the second half. That's probably something that we'll talk about next Wednesday when we preview this Odessa High game as well. Final thoughts on Central?
Yeah, I mean, well, just kind of hitting on that. I feel like the coaching staff is, I mean, they're a veteran coaching staff. That is a group. Coach Davis trusts his assistant coach for a reason. I say veteran, there's some guys that are younger, but there's also guys that have been a part of that staff for a while, and they made the adjustments they needed to. They probably figured out what they were doing in the first half to just a basic analysis. But, Friendship was hanging around there. Central jumped out 14-zip. Friendship scored, and then they had a chance. They were in the red zone before halftime. They had a chance, and they threw just like a little swing pass over to the left, and the receiver just ran a zigzag. Like he was trying to figure out where he was going to go with it because he realized he was probably in a bad bind, waiting for blocks, and the Bobcats, shut him down and smothered him. And, I think that stop probably helped carry some momentum into the second half. But, kudos to the Central defense. That was probably their best game that they've had this season as far as, holding opponents to 7. That's the lowest score they've had this year.
Absolutely.
7 points.
No,
So
great job for the Central Bobcats. Things are looking bright for the season ahead. If you are tuning in to the webcast version of this show and you're watching, you have a question about high school football or one of our 25 Concho Valley teams, you can go ahead and comment below. Our wonderful technical producer, Jeff Caldwell, will scream at us
pointing at him
and demand answers from us. We do have a comment. What is it?
this is not Ryan Reynolds. I like it.
Maybe I should just start coming on here with the Deadpool mask.
Or you could
on.
get one of those really graphic, well put together face masks. You know what I'm talking about? Like the ones that go over and it for the presidents, they have those masks that you can wear for Halloween.
Oh,
they've had President Trump,
Richard
President
Nixon.
Obama. Yeah, stuff like that. Just get a really lifelike, I guess is the way of saying that, mask for yourself and just wear it.
So a Ryan Reynolds mask that is kind of similar to the Cristobal Cougar mascot.
Golly, that thing is impressive.
If you
It's
don't
my
know,
new favorite jungle cat in this area.
if you don't know what we're talking about, I believe you will see it in the Cristobal highlights when we talk about.
He was
Cristobal.
dressed sharp to the nines and the tux too.
Hey, it was an important game. You got to dress for the occasion. Turning our attention to District 8-1A Division 1, number 2 Sterling City going on the road to beat top-ranked Westbrook 38-28. And all I got to say is I'm shaking my head at those experts who picked Westbrook to win this one. Don't doubt those Sterling City Eagles. I don't know how many times we have to sit up here.
I'm just going to, I'll shake my
We have to
head.
sit up here and say that. Jaydon, like I said, a lot of experts picked it. Is it time for Sterling City to gain some respect? Because you look at who they beat this season: number 1 Westbrook, number 3 Borden County, number 5 May, number 6 Happy. Is it time?
I mean, I think they've had it. It's just Westbrook was number 1, and I don't think that – I felt like with the rankings being set up the way that they are, they're not going to jump Sterling City over Westbrook when the two teams play each other later on in the season, for district. I felt like it was kind of one of those things where, if they keep winning, we'll keep them 1 and 2. I don't think it's necessarily a disrespect to Sterling City. Now, picking Westbrook – I know Hunter Granges with sixmanfootball.com. He does stuff with Dave Campbell's. He picked Sterling City to win. I picked Sterling City to win. Humble brag, but I didn't see a lot of people really out there that were picking the Eagles, and it kind of surprised me, not because that Westbrook didn't deserve the credit that they've had. And Westbrook is still a really good football team. Let's just pump the brakes necessarily on saying, well, okay, yeah, Sterling City's great because, and they are a really good football team. But last year they beat Rankin, and then Rankin beat Sterling City in the playoffs. And now that Sterling City wins, they're going to be the W8 by UIL playoff pairing standards. They'll probably get either Ira or Hermley. And then the next matchup will probably be Rankin. If they beat Rankin, then on the other side of the bracket, if Westbrook takes care of business, then they meet in the regional final. So, yeah, we could see this matchup again in the postseason. But, yeah, as far as last night, Sterling City, they took care of business. Coach Cisco, or Trey Cisco, said he didn't think it was even their best game. He thought they played well, but he thought they could have played a lot better than what they did. So that's encouraging, I guess, if you're an Eagles fan. And, I feel like if you're wanting to do the whole rankings argument, it's kind of hard not to say that Sterling City's the number one team.
For
just
sure.
just like you said, basing that off their resume. And I guess that's kind of where that's why I kind of leaned toward picking Sterling City. You know, it isn't a bias that they're in our area. Have I got to see them play a lot more? Yes. But I also was trying to be as unbiased as possible when picking the game. And I guess the thing that ultimately made the decision for me was just, okay, well, Sterling City has played all of those teams, and Westbrook has played number 3 Montley County in 1A Division 2, number 3 Borden County in 1A Division 1, and they played Lorain, they've played Garden City. Like, it's not that they necessarily scheduled weak or anything. They played all right teams. Water Valley looks like they're, you know, and they thrashed Water Valley, but, you know, it was just a matter of, I felt like some of those teams are on a down year, like the traditional, like with Garden City, Lorain. That whole district 1A Division 2 is a mess right now. But yeah, I mean, I guess basing it off of schedule, I felt like Sterling City had this one.
And as we should be unbiased members of the media, we'll go ahead and point that out. No, we all want our.
I mean, I like Sterling City. Yeah, like, I mean, it's pretty hard to argue at this point that I'm not like a big Sterling City like supporter. Like, I enjoy watching like their style of football because it's quick, and you know, Hudson Cox, even at quarterback, like, I feel like we don't mention him a lot, a senior, and you know, just watching him have those moments where he can drop back, and if you're watching the webcast, you saw it, where he drops back, that play action, and just throws a beautiful pass to Damian Calderon. And you know, that's something that I think gets overlooked because of all of the guys that they have in that backfield that can run the ball. Cross Knittle has been good. Francisco Gonzalez has been good. Case Johnson has been good. You know, they've got depth, and here it is. If you're watching the webcast, he beats that defender there that's coming off the edge, and just a beautiful ball. And a good catch. No, yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, that was just well executed all around. And then they score 24 unanswered points from that point forward.
No, that's a KLST Top 5 Play nominee if you're tuning into Sunday's 10 o'clock show.
But I would just say, like, kind of, I guess, Sterling City, I think, made a very good case to be the number one team in the state. But I also, the most important thing was, I feel like they won. They're in the driver's seat now in District 8-1A, and I think they might have locked it up.
Absolutely.
They have to play Highland still, but you know.
And that one was is going to be played on Halloween, actually.
Yeah,
at
next
1
Saturday.
PM. So that should be a fun one. You actually caught up with Sterling City head coach Trey Cisco to get his thoughts for Inside the Game. We actually have that sound now if we want to go ahead and roll it.
I'm super proud of them, man. They fought hard the whole night. I mean, it was a tough physical game. And, I think from our schedule that we've played so far this year, I think that's really one of the things that we've gotten better at is physicality. I know, we're really fast. Our backs and our linemen block really well and stuff like that. But just the physicality of the game has gotten better through the tougher schedule. And I think that's really going to help us out going forward.
So that is Sterling City head coach Trey Cisco. Westbrook, they scored on the opening drive. Mm-hmm. And really the turning point, again, if you're watching the highlights for the webcast, was that fumble out of the back of the end zone that ended up leading to an 18-yard touchdown run by Cass Johnson, making it 24-8. Capitalizing on opportunities was extremely huge, generating turnovers. Damian Calderon, huge for Sterling City. He had 3 interceptions. Cross Knittle, he's had one heck of a season so far as well. 3 touchdown runs, his third score with actually 3:44 left to put away the game.
Yeah, and they had an 18-point lead. And Westbrook scored at the end of the game. So, I mean, they kind of kept that 10-point lead that they took in the half and just, they kind of steady with it, and then they jumped to 18, and Westbrook kind of got back to 10 at the end. But, no, I mean, Look, that was a huge win for them. I don't think anyone would disagree that it's a huge win when the number 2 and number 1 team in the state play. I think even Dave Campbell's had this billed as their number 1 game across all classifications. So that kind of shows you just how important that game was.
Eagles pick up the win 38-28. Huge win for them. As we mentioned, the Eagles will host Highland, who's 5-3, 1-1 in district next Saturday, October 31st at 1 p.m. if you want to head out to Sterling City. They'll then close out the regular season against Robert Lee. We do have a question from a viewer. What's the viewer's name? Randall Baker is asking what our thoughts are for Ballinger and Bangs, which is actually for a district championship, which is extremely
pretty much
for the district championship. And that one's out in Ballinger this next Friday. Two really great teams. One's undefeated. Bangs is undefeated on the season. Ballinger, they've lost one game to Llano. They're sitting at 7-1. Jaydon, what's your take on that?
I mean, well, I feel like for our area games, that's probably going to be our game of the week. No doubt about it, because of the district implications. I guess if I want to just backtrack with that really quick, the only reason I kind of say, well, yeah, it is it more than likely for the district title? Yes, because Bangs handled Sonora last night, and I was hoping that Sonora would play a little closer in that game, which Ballinger then goes to Sonora after this game against Bangs and would have to play Sonora. So the whole three-way tie scenario comes into play if Ballinger beats Bangs and then Sonora beats Ballinger in the final week. But no, I feel like the Bearcats, they're cruising right along. They beat Ingram Moore 47-6 last night. We kind of have figured out what Ingram Moore is, and that all of that speculation and questions that we had about them has kind of gone out the window. But no, I mean, I think that Ballinger's got a good little setup right now. Their defense has been kind of what they've anchored on. They had a bad game against Llano, but Llano's a good team. And I think that, you know, when I was diving into message boards, like that was a team that some were saying, watch out for them. Watch out for them in 3A Division 1, because that could be a team that sneaks up in there. And, you know, yeah, offensively, they lit Ballinger up. But, you know, since that loss, they've kind of came to their own and started back to that Ballinger Bearcats defense that we saw to start the year. That was mainly, you know, keeping them in games or not keeping them in games, but helping them control games, I guess is a better way of putting it. Because the offense, yes, they take the home run ball every now and then? Yes, they do. And one of the things, they'll run a reverse or a sweep with Weston Rolowitz. And I feel like by now coaches have to know it's coming. But Rolowitz has just these, like a track athlete frame, you know, those long legs where he's just Clydesdale going along. No, the Clydesdale's got heavy feet. I'm trying to find a good way of putting this. But he's just so lanky that he's just step by step just cruising past these guys. Tyler Vaughn's back to full strength. Carter Arrett is when he stepped in there and played for him, he's doing well, and he's still playing.
Yeah.
They're switching it in and out and trying to keep defenses on their toes. If you want my opinion on how Bangs has that running back, and I know you have a stat for that because that was interesting.
Ethan Sanchez. I was actually out at Bangs in Sonora yesterday. That guy is a monster. I'm talking about breaking 4 or 5 arm tackles right up the middle on a 3rd and 13 and getting a first down. Like, it's insane. I think he's accounted for 37% of Bangs' total offensive yards this season. Going into last night, he had 80-plus carries for 1,055 yards. I think it was like 18 touchdowns, something along the lines, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
If you want my take on it, Ballinger's defense, it's a good defense, and they're great at shutting down the run, which just so happens to be Bangs' strong.
And that's, I guess, what I was trying to get you to lead into with that. Yeah, just to answer the question after a long kind of
monologue.
Giving like kind of where we're coming from. Ballinger's were the favorites to win this district. I still feel like that's the case. You know, we'll talk about regional stuff, like how when it gets into the postseason, the region, you know, that's a loaded region, man. But yeah, do I feel like Bangs has a chance to win this game? Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them because Bangs has you know, proven themselves this season so far. But I do feel like Ballinger's going to come away with the win.
And we'll talk about it more on Wednesday's webcast if you want more of an in-depth breakdown.
Yeah, we typically do the preview stuff and more of a rewind on Saturdays.
So if you want to hear more about the Ballinger-Bangs matchup, make sure you subscribe to the CVHP Locker Room Rewind podcast feed that's available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Ballinger, they picked up the win, like you mentioned, 47-6. Huge offensive field day for the Bearcats. They led 27-0 at the end of the first quarter. Derek Dixon, 73 yards, 17 carries, 3 touchdowns. Carter Arrett, 6 of 8 for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. Huge game against Bangs for Ballinger next week.
We guess we could hit on that Sonora Bangs game too while we're at it.
Staying with that
district. Well, Cristobal El Dorado's big, and we're going to get to that. That was a big game. That's kind of what's next on the docket. But I guess let's just wrap up 3A Division 2. Or 3A Division 2.
3A Division
Dyslexia.
2. So Sonora, they beat Bangs. It was, I guess, really trying to contend for one of those top seeds. They were riding high on a 3-game winning streak, and really they just got outplayed in that game. Banks started fast. There was a fumbled snap that led to a touchdown in the first quarter. And then I think by the end of one, or going into the end of the first half, it was like 20-0.
So
really Sonora just couldn't rebound after that.
And it looks like you said the rushing attack was what it. I mean, they had 213 yards on the ground, but throwing it, they had 184, 397 yards against Sonora's defense that has kind of kept opponents somewhat level this year. And Sonora tries to control the ball with their wing T offense. Young football team that is still trying to find its way, but I think they have in some cases with the lower levels of competition. I think in that district, I think Sonora is still going to probably end up being the 3 out of there. So did Sonora probably not play their best game last night? But man, in the years to come, Sonora and Coach Sherrill, they're building something there, and I feel like things can only kind of go up for them.
48-14 was the final score of Bangs and Sonora. I just realized we never actually said that final score. It's one of the things for Sonora where your offense it's really hard to overcome a deficit like that, where you kind of dig yourself, like a 21-point deficit hole. It's really hard
it's deflating
to overcome something like that. Brady, who's fighting for a playoff spot as well, they blinked Grape Creek 28-0 to stay alive for that most likely 4th and final playoff spot. Maybe the 3rd. I don't know. It's unlikely.
Well, I mean,
Bangs still on the schedule.
Well, and Sonora beating them last week kind of, I wouldn't say solidifies it. I mean, they get Ingram Moore next week. That's going to probably be for the 4th and final playoff spot. But I feel a little confident that Brady's going to win that game, but I mean, they didn't just blank. I mean, they blanked Grape Creek 28-0, but they didn't just blow Grape Creek out. And it's not anything to be disrespectful against Grape Creek, but opponents have been putting up some numbers since the start of district. At least the better ones have, and one has to think that maybe. I mean, because Grape Creek's defense had a nice little stop right before halftime, holding Ballinger out of the end zone. They had multiple times where Brady's going for it on 4th down and stopped their offense. Grape Creek stopped their offense. But, I mean, you just have to think that one's going to be a little competitive.
Absolutely. And Sonora, they still have Ballinger on the schedule.
That's what I'm saying. They had
Brady still has Bangs on the schedule.
Yeah, that's why the 3-way tie, it's still an option, but I mean, let's just look at it from a standpoint of how everyone's played this season. And and with the COVID era that we're in, anything can happen. You've seen that just with like Matt Stepp, for example, is on Twitter, and it seems like every 30 minutes we're seeing someone canceling a game, or like I think someone was on a bus I saw on Thursday, and like 5 hours out of the game, and they had to cancel. So, I mean, you've got to hope that stuff like that is also something that doesn't happen to you, where you're having to forfeit a game.
It's been a journey keeping up with all these schedule changes this season.
Fortunately for us, there hasn't been a ton.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the Concho Valley's kind of kept things somewhat
contained.
Other than, like I said, 6-1A Division II is a mess right now.
No, yeah, Concho Valley teams, they've done a good job containing, COVID-19. We really haven't seen that much schedule changes. Something El Dorado couldn't contain. How about senior quarterback
10,
Braden
man.
Wilcox? The guy is an athlete.
Number 10.
District 14 to a Division II 8th-ranked Cristobal beating El Dorado 43-20. 7 straight wins for those Cougars. They're now in the driver's seat to claim the outright district title, and they did it in dominant fashion. The Cougars led 36-7 going into the 4th, and this was really just all Cristobal. They held El Dorado to just 7 rushing yards and 109 passing yards in the first half. 23 total rushing yards. And against a John Long team that really likes to establish the run, that is huge. 206 total passing yards as well.
Yeah, they were going into the game. I feel like El Dorado knew what they needed to do as far as containing number 10. And that was one of the things, though, with going it on offense for them. They wanted to be able to establish the run. It's a layer of their game that they've added with Coach Long being an offensive lineman. That's obviously something that he realizes the importance of, because with the skill players that they have at receiver, there's old Jungle on the webcast. But, yeah, with the skill players that El Dorado has with Metter and Covarrubias, those are the two that really just kind of stand out. And if you're going to allow those guys a chance to get anything going, you gotta be able to establish the run, and they failed to do so.
And as obvious as it sounds, containing a team's best player, we sat up here on Wednesday's show and talked about it. Definitely failed to do that. Wilcox, 179 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, ran the ball 14 times, an additional 207 yards and 2 more scores. Also had an interception that set up a touchdown. KLST Player of the Week nominee for sure. We'll see what we kind of narrow that down to when it comes to
Watch
Sunday's webcast. And if you're looking at the
so
look
fast.
at that speed.
I mean, this kid has started since a sophomore, and yes, is it a small community, Cristobal? Yeah, it is. But man, he would start on bigger, maybe not at quarterback, but they would find somewhere for Braden to play. Braden isn't he's one of the best athletes in this area. I'm willing to throw it out that he's one of the best athletes. Just the sheer speed that he has. And just the elusiveness of it. Yeah. Someone can be fast, but he's very good at recognizing when he needs to pump the brakes, cut a guy out, cross back right, cross back left. It's reminds me a lot of kind of, and I'm not trying to say that he's Vince Young or anything, but it reminds me of.
Is it the number 10?
Yeah, I think it might be. And my bias of being a huge Texas Longhorn guy, but it reminds me of watching someone, just creating something out of nothing. When, the play's broken down, he can, get a guy to draw, he'll boot it out left, nothing's there. He'll run 20 yards back on the right side and then find a way to just scramble his way through the defensive pressure and normally takes it for a touchdown. It's so much fun to watch. And if you haven't had a chance to go and watch that kid play, do it, because his senior year is this year. And while I feel like Cristobal's got a good chance of making a pretty good playoff run with the region they're in, there's not many opportunities left, especially nearby.
Maybe we'll see him at an area college. Who knows?
I just mean with the Cats.
No, yeah, absolutely. So Wilcox, like we mentioned, great ball carrier vision, extremely fast. He's been working on improving his passing ability, which I think we can see this season.
He had a few, he had a few good throws.
He's gotten better there. A couple of players, I guess more statistics to hit on. Bo Jolly, huge game for him. 6 catches, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. Josh Fava, as always, great game, 75 rushing yards on 23 carries, also a touchdown. And then I guess the spotlighted player for El Dorado, Corbin Covarrubias, 13 for 30, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cristobal picks up the win, 43-20. They improved to 7-1 overall, 3-0 in district. They'll host Junction next Friday, who lost to Rock Springs 24-16 last night.
Yeah, I guess back to Cristobal really quick so that I'm not just praising Braden Wilcox too much, because it is a team effort. Bo Jolly, a returner, he's really played well at receiver for them this year. So has Josh Fava. The skill players for Cristobal are good as well, and it helps when you have guys like that around Braden Wilcox. And it also should be pointed out that Braden's brother Brendan, who is a stud on the line, was not playing last night. He's their center and then defensive line. That's another guy that when he's in, that makes a big difference. So yeah, that I was wrong about this one too. I thought El Dorado was going to find a way. I guess their defense struggled pretty bad through non-district, and I thought that they kind of picked it up in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, I thought that their defense was going to play a little bit better than what they did, and they didn't. And all the credit to Cristobal, because I feel like that was, you can say what you want about it being the district title game in week 9, and yeah, there's 2 games left, and we've got COVID stuff, but that was for the district title. I really believe that Cristobal's going to handle Junction next week, and then they have Miles, who's struggling this year, and on the verge of pretty much. I feel like they're not going to make the playoffs. I think Rock Springs ends up getting the 3 and Junction the 4. So yeah, I think Cristobal's pretty much sealed it last night.
Like I said at the top of the show, we're taking that next step forward in terms of having a more clear vision of the district seedings and positionings, and I think you kind of see it with this district, 14-2A Division 2. I think we kind of share the same beliefs on it. Cristobal number 1, El Dorado number 2, Rock Springs will probably sit in that 3rd spot, with Junction rounding out the final playoff spot there.
They've got Miles and Menard left.
Yep.
They're going to win those games. Whereas Junction, on the other hand, has Cristobal and El Dorado left, and Junction gets the tiebreaker because they beat, Rock Spring gets the tiebreaker over Junction. So that's just my take, my opinion. But I feel like Rock Springs has kind of been a surprise this year, and I think they're kind of right now, based on scores and everything, they've kind of earned that respect as being the 3.
How about the Angoras? I can swallow my pride and say I was wrong about this game as well. I'm not an expert. 43-20 Cristobal over El Dorado. El Dorado's now 2-1 in district. They'll host Menard, who's coming off a loss to Miles, 57-20.
Menard.
Again, if you're watching the webcast and you have a question for us, feel free to drop it in the comments section. We're going to go back to 6-man football.
We're all over the place.
District 14-1A, Division 1. How about those Water Valley Wildcats? They beat Eden. The score surprised me. Didn't surprise 6-man football's prediction for it being, they guessed 45ing Eden.
Yeah.
Water Valley winning 56-6. The Wildcats are your district champions for the first time since 2017. That just so happens to also be their last playoff appearance. So go ahead and update that information to say
Nathan Hayes gets his first, at least a share. I mean, let's be honest, they locked it up with this win.
Yeah.
They still have to play Paint Rock, and something could happen, but they locked it up. If they lose, then it creates a weird scenario where one of the one-loss teams in that district could potentially force a tie, or there could be a there can't be a 3-way tie.
That's
with
the thing.
Eden
They beat Erie County and they beat Eden.
But with the way that it is, yeah, I guess that would make sense. So yeah,
Congrats, Nathan Hayes.
I guess they've pulled it off.
Let's throw in should we do a cheer or a clap sound?
A cheer.
Let's do a cheer.
Let's do a cheer.
Congrats, Nathan Hayes. First district championship as head coach of the Wildcats.
But the thing is the only reason I question it is because each district has different rules with how they do tiebreakers. And even though a team might have beaten a team, if you have the same record at the end of the season, then it could go to points. It could go to these different things that, like, there's tiebreaker 1, which is points or head-to-head or whatever it is that they do. And while it would seem the logical thing to do head-to-head, there are districts that don't do necessarily head-to-head. So just saying, like, yes, have they won it? Yes, they've won it. They've won the district championship. But
it's a great thing for Water Valley. I mean, Texas football, they picked them to finish third in the district. I think both of us.
I picked them to finish third.
I think both of us picked them to finish third as well.
Yeah.
Now they're district champions. Connor Weiss, we talk about this guy a lot. You talk about Samuel Navarrete running with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is your traditional, let's run, just grab the football and run with a purpose. Huge offensive night. 277 rushing yards. I think all of these touchdowns are Connor Weiss.
Yeah, this is the first three of the game. He scored the first the first four on offense. They had a fumble recovery on a kickoff that was actually recovered in the end zone for their fourth touchdown. Their fifth touchdown was Connor scoring again. And I mean, like, yeah, he's really, like, Water Valley's on the radar now. No doubt about that. In six-man, they've proven themselves, and especially Weiss, man, just, and he's like, while he does run with a purpose, you can kind of see by looking at highlights, he recognizes, he also doesn't just go and try the whole wrecking ball approach where he's just quickly hitting a hole or something. He is very patient, and he has good vision. Yes, he has very good vision. He waits for his blocks to open up, and then he'll decide, okay, do I need to bounce it, or do I need to keep it inside? And yeah, he's done a really good job. That whole Water Valley team has been very impressive the last 4 games.
Weiss's stat line 277 rushing yards on 15 carries, 6 touchdowns. He also threw a 4-yard touchdown pass to Gabriel Smith, and the guy can also play defense. He had 6 tackles and an interception. Water Valley's 4th straight win. They are 4-2, 3-0 in district. Those 2 losses coming to Borden County, who was number 3 at the time, and then Westbrook, who was number 1 at the time. I think that says more about the competition on the state level with District 14 1A than really anything else.
Yeah, I mean the playoff. Fortunately, Water Valley's in Region 4, so who knows? I mean, how that will play out for them. Jonesboro in recent years has been kind of the representative, but yeah, I mean, it looks like Region 1 and Region 2 are the ones to be in 6-man football, and yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure how they'll do in the playoffs, just basing, if you want to base it off the powerhouse regions, they didn't fare too well, but, you know, that was also their first 2 games of the season. So you got to give them, they're high school kids, they learn from mistakes. There's a lot of stuff going on. They were battling COVID to start the year.
A lot of growth.
There was a lot of adversity that they had to overcome. So really, kudos to Water Valley. Like, I really have been impressed with them. And, you know, I guess one team that I guess I'm a little disappointed with is Eden. I thought Eden was going to be really good, and I feel like I kept their young, talented core, you know, with Gamboa and Hunter Rogers, and I mean, even guys that were emerging on that team. You know, it felt like a group that was just the perfect kind of recipe for a team that could come in and make a good playoff run. And yeah, they can still make the playoffs, and maybe they can still make the run. You have to give them the same kind of argument that you can with Water Valley, and just learning, you know, overcoming adversity. Maybe that non-district schedule just spent them out, but I mean, after just getting beaten consistently all season long, you have to feel like that's taken a toll, just kind of on how they approach things.
Eden falls to 2-6, overall 1-1 in district with the loss to Water Valley. The Wildcats, they will host Paint Rock, like you said, on November 6th. And then you have Eden, who will host Paint Rock next week, and then they'll end their season with
Erie
should
County.
Be a pretty good showdown.
Don't forget about Erie County. Yeah, we can't forget about Erie County. They were on the bye this week, but and Water Valley did handle them also, but let's not forget about Erie County. That's their only loss of the season was against Water Valley. So
who knows what can happen in the 6-man
game. Exactly.
Moving on, District 2-4A Division 1, extremely close by at San Angelo Stadium. The Lakeview Chiefs losing to Andrews 56-27. It was the home finale for Lakeview, and I mean, the Mustangs, they really just came out firing on all cylinders. 8 first-half touchdowns for the district favorites. Andrews, they improved to 7-2 with the win. Lakeview's third straight loss. They're now 4-5, 0-2 in district. It was actually their fifth straight loss in district play, with their last district win coming against Big Spring in the 2018 finale.
Seems how it normally goes for the Chiefs, as it is like the Big Spring matchup that is the one that determines third place, and
we will see.
We'll get to see it again this year, because Big Spring lost to Fort Stockton, who I'll be honest, I thought Big Spring was going to beat Fort Stockton. I thought the two teams, Andrews and then how they played against Andrews, Big Spring did. They didn't get necessarily blown out by them. It was a fairly close game. Andrews started hot, Big Springs then kind of caught up, and then Andrews they pulled away. But yeah, I just with Fort Stockton, how they played in non-district, I was feeling like even last week that Lakeview could have beaten Fort Stockton, but maybe they've figured it out, and it looks like next week's game, Andrews and Fort Stockton, will be for that district championship, and Big Spring and the Chiefs for third place. Loser of that game will play more than likely either El Paso, Riverside, or Clint because they're tied. I think El Paso, Riverside's 3-0 and Clint's 2-0. So you would have loser playing Riverside, winner playing Clint, if things were to just finish out in that district as they were right now.
Yeah, I mean, history likes to repeat itself, and it just kind of seems like the narrative with this bunch, with Big Spring and Lakeview going for the third seed and the fourth seed. We'll see it again next week with Lakeview. They travel to Big Spring, who's 3-3 overall, 0-2 in district, to close out the regular season. Austin Bandy, another 2-touchdown performance. He's caught a touchdown in all but 2 games this season. If there was like a high school football, fantasy football, Austin Bandy's a good start.
Yeah, Austin Bandy's been consistent. He's had a heck of a senior year. Brandon Herrera played well, he had at least while I was there, he had a pretty nice catch for their first touchdown. Albert he was getting pressured by the Mustangs front all game long. I mean, he hardly had any time to throw. He had receivers open, but when you've got that pressure, that they were bringing it in the first quarter, and he had open receivers, but it was either over their head, too far in front of them, behind them. It's just they couldn't necessarily find that rhythm. And then at the start of the second quarter, though, Rodriguez booted out, had the rush coming, but that bootleg kind of allowed for him some time to get off the pass, and Herrera caught a nice little shoestringer to get them on the board for their first touchdown. But look, like Andrews was the favorites in that district for a reason. They made a good playoff run last season. Yeah, they're without some guys that helped, some crucial seniors, but it looks like they've kind of just reloaded. I don't know if they're necessarily the same team. Clearly they're not the same team, but I guess like as far as how far they can go in the playoffs and how good that team actually is. But they'll probably beat Fort Stockton next week, and we'll see about Big Spring and Lakeview.
Yeah, with it being a 4-team district, that means Lakeview is automatically in the playoffs. The winner of Lakeview and Big Spring next week, as you mentioned, Jaydon, will determine the third and fourth seeds. The final from Lakeview Stadium, Andrews beats Lakeview 56-27. Let's go ahead and move on to some of the final other scores around the area. District 338 Division 1. Wall wasn't in action. Breckenridge forfeited due to COVID-19 related issues. So the Hawks get a 7-point win. Number 7, Jim Ned. They beat TLCA 75-0. Out in District 14 to a Division 1 Ozona, they beat Harper 55-20. It's the 5th straight win for the Lions. And then Mason's game versus Brackettville was postponed to November 6th. This is a long break for Mason between games.
Yeah, and Mason gets that time to prepare for next week's game, which another one that probably will decide the district championship. Big one out in Ozona between those two schools. And, that We'll see. We'll see. I mean, we'll get to it in the preview cast, but yeah, we'll see. That's going to be a good game, I feel like.
And that one is out in Ozona. The Lions riding a 5-game winning streak. The Punchers riding a 4-game winning streak. So two teams with some good momentum going into that game. It should be an extremely exciting one. 7:30 p.m. in Ozona. Could be for the district title next Friday, October 30th. Do we have any more to touch on in District 14 2A Division 2? I know we talked about Rock Springs and Junction.
You said Miles beat Menard. Yeah, we hit them.
Pretty much hit them. District 8 1A Division 1 along with Sterling City. Robert Lee, they played a Thursday game. They lost to Highland. They got shut out, actually, 46
It was a Wednesday night game.
Wednesday night game, excuse me.
It was weird. It's weird. They're going to play Monday night, too. So, in a way, we kind of got to not necessarily preview it. Highland plays Bront, excuse me, not Robert Lee. They play Bront. So, this district got all messed up with Highland having COVID issues. But you know what? At least they were flexible enough to let the kids try to make the games up and not say, hey, well, they have to forfeit.
Yeah, 8-point forfeit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's more fun for us. That's more fun for the fans.
Well, it lets the kids compete.
Kids.
I mean, it gives Highland a chance to at least make a case next week. If they beat Sterling City, then we've got the whole 3-way tie in that district.
How about that?
I'm just saying. I mean, at least they get the opportunity instead of saying, well, Sterling City, they would have had to have forfeited, and then Sterling City de facto pretty much district champions because they're going to beat, they're going to win out.
No, yeah, it's like you said, it's good for the kids, and I mean, high school football, you only have a certain number of games you can play throughout your career.
Exactly.
So it's good to be able to get those games in and get that experience and just have fun. The Steers, they'll host Westbrook next week. And then in District 14 1A Division 1, very best, they beat Paint Rock 62-16. The Falcons now 3-4-1. They will take on Erie County next week. That's pretty much all of it.
I mean, Erie County, like we said on the bye, that game I guess is a little. I mean, very best seems like they're the 4th best team in the district, but they lost to Eden. I guess there could be some 3-way tie for the second spot, the final spot in the district if they beat Erie County, and then Erie County's been able to beat Eden. Then it becomes a tiebreaker. It'd be, I think, a whole mess. You could still argue that could still be there, I think. Very Best beats them. Yeah, Very Best would need to lose another game. I don't think they've played Water Valley yet, have they?
Yeah, they did.
They have.
Yeah.
Oh, because Water Valley only has Paint Rock
45
left.
of them.
So, yeah, I guess, yeah. But I think Erie County will probably take that one.
Yep, coming off a bye week as well. The Hornets sit at 7-1 overall, 1-1 in district. Exciting stuff for week 9 and week 5 for high school football. Really, I mean, you can see all the papers all over the desk. Really a lot to get through, a lot learned. And really just taking it one week at a time and really just enjoying ourselves.
Yeah, we have. This has been one of the funner. I mean, I've only done 2, but, well, I guess a few. Newspaper and then doing this with TV. And this has been a really fun season. I've enjoyed a lot of the matchups that we've had.
It's been good. The storylines have been great.
Yeah,
things are falling into place.
That's big. And I mean, with just this, I guess, hitting back to the big 6A Little Southwest Conference, just, Central's return to that's obviously a big storyline, and the fact that they're kind of picking up right where they left off it's fun, because it's fun when your big school is doing well, and then, a small school with Sterling City, they're doing well, and then a kind of in between with Cristobal, they're doing well. And, while Wall lost to Jim Ned, don't count them out, because while they, I guess it's one thing I guess we could hit on very quick. I know we're trying to wrap this up for everyone. If Wall, ends up beating Clyde next week, the playoff scenario would be, as of right now, where they would play Pilot Point. They'd get a rematch in the bi-district round. That district for 3A is good. I don't know if Pilot Point, you've said that you've heard Pilot Point's good. I think Pilot Point's down compared to where they were last season. So, but Wall's also down. So if Wall is able to beat Pilot Point, they then would get the winner of District 2, which looks like it's going to be Bushland, which will be another tough matchup. Then we go to regional, and then they get Shallowater, who I think is like the number 3 or like the number 5 right now. And then if they get past that, they would probably more than likely get Brock, which I want to see because...
I mean, yes, Wall Brock.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to see Wall Brock? So
of course.
I think they've got a bit of an easier path, at least as far as making a longer run, since they're not on that same half of the bracket as Brock. So just something to consider.
Exciting. And I know we kind of talked about it after our shows last night. It's good that we're not just going to have an abrupt ending to football season too.
Oh.
Because when the playoffs come, some of our teams are eliminated. We still have Central, who's going through
I mean,
a good slate of games.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
That's why, abrupt ending. Let's just keep our fingers crossed with some things. That nothing. Man, this year's been unexpected. So let's let's just pump the brakes a little bit with that. I'm all worried that you just maybe gave us a jinx.
No, I'll knock on the desk. And
Yeah,
I mean, knowing how we close out shows, this show will probably have an abrupt ending as well. So
yeah, that's fine.
Those are our final comments, Jeff. Do we have any final questions? We are good to go. We're given the green light. That's about all the time we have today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this week's Locker Room Rewind. You can check out all of our content on ConchoValleyHomepage.com. Scores, highlight reels, you name it. If you're watching the webcast right now and you haven't already, go ahead and this is just a giant plug block right here.
Yeah,
if you haven't already, like the KLST and KSAN Facebook pages. Not only will you keep track of the sports around the Concho Valley, but you also get to keep track of news. So that's pretty much a win-win there around the area, and it's good to support local journalism as well. Which leads me to my next plug. Thank you, Standard Times, for recap information, stats as always. It's hard for us local television people to kind of keep track of all of that stuff, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the CVHP Locker Room Rewind podcast feed. So search Locker Room Rewind on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. We do these recap episodes every Saturday. We do the preview shows every Wednesday. And if you subscribe, you can get notified when those episodes are posted, and also lets you have easier access so you're not going and you're just searching for it. You're just staring at me.
No, I'm just listening. I'm listening.
You're listening. That's good. I have
an attentive listener.
I have people's attention.
Yeah.
We do have important streaming information, I guess.
No,
Jaydon, if you want to go ahead and PSA about that.
It's not a hot it's just kind of the age of television is changing. Miles Ballinger is kind of in a weird situation where they get Abilene. This is something that is not new information to anyone, but if you are one of the people that want to get more of Miles and Ballinger coverage, because we're going to go to Miles and Ballinger more than Abilene will. They've got that whole north. They've got a lot more teams than we do. But if you are interested in getting more coverage and being able to watch Inside the Game or Friday Night Football, Ryan's Season Pass, any of our local stuff, just all you have to do is just type in a San Angelo zip code, and that will give you the channels for San Angelo's DMA, which is just the San Angelo TV market. So you would get KSAN, you'd get KLST, you'd get the other ones. So yeah, I mean, it's just something to consider if you're a Miles Bulldog, if you're a Ballinger Bearcat, even if you're a Blackwell Hornet, a fan of them. That's just something that those are teams that we're going to continue to cover because they're close by. The age of digital, with posting things online, you can reach that audience, and there's a demand for that stuff. But if you would like to be able to watch highlight shows on Friday nights, I would, no offense to you guys at KLST, I would like to say that I've got the best. We put together a pretty good highlight show on Friday nights. Me and Rachel Turnock do. We get 30 minutes to do it, so it's a lot of fun. So yeah, check it out. It's an option for those that are craving local content from their actual town that isn't just a bunch of stuff that they're not going to get that coverage like they would normally.
Wise man. Listen to him.
Also, the Standard Times thing, yeah, I really appreciate the Standard Times for everything they do. Also, would like to point out we don't just pull everything from the Standard Times. If that's how something is felt, then that's not the case. We do our research like any journalist should do and pull from as many different sources, but we will give you credit when credit is due.
Yep.
There are things like Huddle. There are things like Max Preps. There's Digital Scout. There's several sources where you can get stats. Lone Star Football Network, Texas High School Football History.com, which is a really good source because it has series histories, a bunch of stuff like that. There are a lot of things out there. So yeah, while we do appreciate the Standard Times a lot, it's not like we just go to the Standard Times, read what they have, and copy and paste. I spend countless hours each week researching stuff. And rarely do I not that they don't do a great job. I've actually tried to get away from reading stuff that the Standard Times does, just so that we have a different perspective and we give our viewers and our readers something different,
a more unique perspective as well.
Yeah, their perspective, my perspective, someone else's perspective. It makes things more interesting. I mean, that's what, there's so much content that gets thrown into everyone's faces these days. Why not have a little bit of some differences in there?
A ton of links.
But when you're using stats and things, you're going to have a lot of the same stuff.
A ton of links available.
Yeah.
When you're scrolling through your social medias. Support local journalism.
Yeah, support those guys. They do a good job. Seriously.
Again, thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you high school football. God bless America. We'll be back.
America.